What an honor and pleasure for me to participate in the Reykjavik dialogue aimed at setting an agenda for work to end violence against girls and women. I am grateful to the Icelandic government, the city of Reykjavik, the Nordic Council of Ministers, and RIK, the Institute for Gender Equality and Difference at the University of Iceland. In our work on the deep-rooted and multifaceted issues of gender-based violence, it is important for us to focus on the impacts of colonial and racial historical legacies on feminist justice. An old African proverb states, "If we cannot retrace the footsteps that brought our ancestors to where we stand, we can never know where to go aright." I enter this space as a radical queer African feminist scholar, as a human rights activist and peaceful demonstrator against multiple intersectional oppressions, as a creative critic who deploys the artistic medium of poetry to amplify voices of resistance and dissidence, as well as a politician with membership to Uganda's opposition political party called Forum for Democratic Change. As a young girl who grew into a bold, loud-mouthed woman, I have survived gender-based violence perpetuated publicly by state agents, institutionally by misogynistic organizational structures, communally by society members, and privately by patriarchs in institutions of socializations I was either born into or subscribed to. And so my submissions to this historical panel are subjective because as a recovering survivor, I am devoted to organizing against gender-based violence against both women and girls. I am a Black African woman from Uganda who belongs to the Buffalo clan of the Baganda ethnicity. My home country, Uganda, was colonized by the British, and we received flag independence in 1962. And my country suffers diverse shades of neo-imperialism from west, east, and center. This neo-colonialism that is perpetuated by several colonial legacies is widespread in Africa and in the Commonwealth. Colonialism demonized and pathologized the culture, customs, rituals, traditions, ancestral knowledge, and wisdom of us colonized people. Our local languages were deemed primitive, and instead, the colonizer's language was imposed onto us as a marker of civilization. Our proverbs, riddles, legends, euphemisms, healing chants, traditional songs and music, our customary dances and cultural forms of artistic self-expression and collective communication were denigrated and instead overridden using the colonizer's ways. Our African traditional religion and spirituality, where we venerated the ancestors, nature, and energy, was subjugated, and instead, Judeo-Christianity or Islam were transplanted from the West and East, respectively. The socially prized statuses of virginity in pubescent girls, motherhood among women of reproductive age, and wise elder among postmenopausal women took the backstage during slavery, colonialism, post-independence westernization, and increasing globalization. The centrality of the paternal aunt we call Senga, the Senga institution, to processes of sexual maturation was eroded as colonial or missionary schools took over the sex education of my people. The decimation of traditional values of Black Africans during colonialism echoed the annihilation of African pride during slavery. Black women gained significance as overly sexualized, stupid, savage slaves, providing long, hard labor, non-consensual sexual services, and bastard mixed-race children to their slave masters. The value of Black women was reduced to a few coins exchanged on the slave market. Darker skin pigmentation, and too little compared to fairer skin pigmentation. With this dehumanizing dislocation and devaluing of dear Black womanhood came a brutal objectification, silencing, and debraining. Our tongues were symbolically cut out and our brains dug out. Speaking out, particularly in dissent and thinking independently for oneself would earn one punishment, such as rebranding, demotion, degrading torture, detention, dismissal, or even death. A speaking, thinking, agenting Black African woman earned herself a defanging of her poison-spitting mandibles, for she was stepping above her status. If the black man sat on the lowest rung of the race ladder, the black woman was way below the denigrated man and child. This unjust, irrational hierarchy was caricatured most brutally during apartheid in contexts such as South Africa and during civil war. In fact, the bodies of Black African women are often subjected to sexual assault, rape, honor crimes, and sexual cleansing during national civil unrest. Unfortunately, these dehumanizing, debeaking, and debraining norms prevalent during colonialism and slavery were handed down to hierarchies within the post-independence nation state, as well as within the global feminist movement. Black African women were flung at the bottom of the racial and gender taxonomies, often relegated as passive, silent, and grateful recipients of interventions delivered by saviors and rescuers in white, cream-colored, and mixed skin pigmentations. Against this background, Black African women are not expected to voice, whisper, mouth, articulate, or amplify any forms of resistance against oppressive abusers, including those who mete out diverse forms of gender-based violence. We are expected to be submissive, silent, stupid, long-suffering, and strong in the face of gender-based violence. Given that our local languages and traditional modes of expressing grief, speaking out against trauma, and shaming our abusers were robbed from us by colonialism, slavery, post-independence, nationalist organizing, and globalized feminist hierarchies, we are expected to be thought for and spoken for. As I conclude, I have highlighted that history is important. The history of silencing and erasures and making us invisible as Black African women must be understood if we're going to prepare and forge a credible way forward. I have also highlighted that our experiences as Black African women were taken away from us, our modes of expression were stolen from us. And so if we're going to talk about healing ourselves based on our histories, we must reclaim the strength of strong African Black women and ride on this strength. And so I hope as we go into the panel discussion that we can be able to think through colonial and racial hierarchies and find ways in which they impact our feminist justice. Thank you very much.